Hi YouTube, I'm Chelsea. My hair's all wet because I just got out of the shower, but my 2-year-old is asleep, so I figured now is a good time to attempt this video. I've been watching a lot of videos lately on C-sections. I am currently 33 weeks pregnant with my second, and my first C-section went absolutely wonderful, and I thought it would be good to share my story so that moms or expecting moms know that not all C-sections are bad. With my first pregnancy, I was diagnosed with preeclampsia at 29 weeks. I was told that my son probably wouldn't make it to full term. I would probably be having him a couple weeks early, and I was given a list of signs and symptoms that I should look for. I had an ultrasound at 31 weeks, and my son measured at, he was within like the 10th percentile for his size. He ended up being actually a pound less than what he measured. So he was extremely underweight due to my preeclampsia. The swelling was causing a lack of blood flow, so he was not getting the nutrition that he needed. At that ultrasound at 31 weeks, I was also told that he was breech, and that I would probably be having him in the next week or two. I continued to do the 24-hour urine jugs where you have to pee in a jug for 24 hours and then they check your protein. The day before I had my son, my doctor said, okay, any day now, you're going to get a headache, or you're going to have a seizure, or your kidneys are going to fail. So I knew it was coming. The day I had my son, June 18th, I had been on a low sodium or no sodium diet, and I just kind of said, screw it, I want a good meal before I have this baby. So my family and I went out to a Mexican restaurant, and we had, we pegged out on what we wanted. A couple hours after that, I did develop a headache, so my husband took me into the ER, completely unprepared. We figured that they would just do something for the headache, or maybe admit me to the hospital. Didn't really think that I'd be having my son 4 hours later, 5 hours later. So we didn't have a hospital bag or a baby bag or anything like that ready to go. I went in, my blood pressure was 168/109, and they did an ultrasound to see if my son was still breech, which he was. So the doctor told me, okay, this isn't an emergency C-section, it's an unscheduled C-section, and you'll be having your son in a couple hours. So they went ahead, did the epidural, took me into the operating room. They performed the C-section. My husband was able to go back with my son as they were stitching me up. He was rushed into a little side room next to the operating room that I was in, where the pediatricians could look at him because he was so underweight and 8 weeks early. But my husband was able to go and take pictures of him. They stitched me up and put me in the recovery room, where I was able to see pictures of my son. My husband brought me the camera. I saw 4 pictures of my son. The doctors tried to get me to go to sleep. I was in the recovery room for maybe an hour or two. It's all a little foggy. And then they took me up to my room upstairs, which is like the rooms that moms are in after they have their babies. And I was there. They strongly encouraged me to sleep. I couldn't sleep. About 3 hours after I went into that room, they encouraged me to use a breast pump. So I used the breast pump, and I said, okay, it's time for me to see my son. It was 4 o'clock in the morning the first time I saw him. It took 4 hours after my C-section. And they finally got me into a wheelchair and wheeled me downstairs to the NICU. I got to see my baby for the first time. That would be the only thing that I would say was negative about the C-section. I did not get to see my baby right away. Had I had him vaginally though, I wouldn't have been able to see much. either way because he was rushed away to the pediatricians. But I went down, saw him at 4 o'clock in the morning for the first time. A couple hours later at 7 o'clock, I went down again to see him. This time they wheeled me down there and allowed me to walk my way back up to my room, which, I mean, it was a hallway to the elevator and then go up the elevator and my room was right there. So it wasn't a long walk, but it was a start. That day I slowly began walking. I would pump and get some breast milk and then I'd have to walk it over to the nurse's station. And then they did let me walk down to see my son several times that day. I began walking early and I think maybe that's why I had the results I did, I guess. I refused all pain medication after the epidural wore off. I was very, very itchy. It was not a good feeling. They gave me Benadryl and it didn't help. My face itched, my arms itched, everything itched like crazy. But as soon as that epidural wore off, I wasn't in a lot of pain. I figured no medicine was better than a little bit of medicine in the colostrum that I was pumping out for my son. I was very lucky to get my milk so early. My son never had to use formula. Let's see. I was released on the 3rd morning from the hospital and I was able to drive myself home. Stairs would sting a little bit, not gonna lie. Getting in and out of the car stung a little bit. It was like a burning sensation around the incision. But other than that, I never really had a lot of pain. I never had to do wound care. I've heard of women being in excruciating pain for weeks after their cesarean, and I never had that. I'd say within a week or two, I was back to normal. I could do most things. Day before I was released from the hospital, I was able to sleep on my stomach, which was a huge deal to me. I've been a stomach sleeper forever. And I was able to sleep on it. I'd say maybe 8 hours after the cesarean, I was able to shower. They had stuck a pad across the C-section, and a doctor had come to check it and took off the pad and said, okay, you can shower. So that was nice. Let's see. I'd say for maybe about 6 months, if I would stretch myself backwards too far or move in the wrong position, which didn't happen very often, but I would get like a burning sensation around the C-section, the incision. Other than that, I healed perfectly. I never had any redness or itching or really even any tenderness in that area, and I'm probably pretty lucky because I hear a lot of negative things about C-sections, but I just wanted to let everybody know they're not all bad. I had a lot of motivation to get better because I did have my son in the NICU for 2.5 weeks, but they're not all bad. I'm honestly looking forward to my next one here in a couple weeks. So I hope everybody who watches this video takes my information in as well as the negative stuff. Don't just assume that it's going to be a horrible experience, because I didn't have a horrible experience with it. Hopefully I won't have a horrible experience with it this next time. And thanks for watching, guys.